Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my labour and delivery story. So I will just start off by saying that I'm still trying to come to terms. I don't know if that's a real way of saying it, but come to terms with it. It was extremely traumatic, and it's still taking me some time to compartmentalize it. So if you hear some noises, Ava's just over here asleep. So hopefully she will last for the whole time. So basically my due date was Monday the 21st of March 2016, and on Monday 21st of March 2016 at around 10:30 at night I started to get some very light contractions. At first I wasn't really sure if they were contractions. I remember just thinking, oh, I feel achy and stuff. So basically it was around 2 o'clock in the morning on the 22nd where I decided that I needed to get up out of bed because lying in bed hurt me. The contractions hurt when I was lying down, so I needed to get up and walk around. At this stage I said to Robert that I think that I am in labour, and I was from 10:30 time in my contractions, and they were very sporadic at that time, obviously. So around 5 o'clock in the morning I got into the shower, and I found that helped me. So we stayed in the bathroom for a long time, just me in the shower. Robert was timing my contractions from the outside because obviously I was in the water, so I couldn't bring my phone in. So I was in the shower, and Robert was outside timing my contractions. So they were again coming every 5 minutes, lasting for about 30 to 40 seconds. Sometimes they lasted longer, and I wasn't really sure when they started and when they lasted, but at 7 o'clock we decided in the morning, or 7:30 in the morning, we decided to go to the hospital, or maybe it was just before that. So we went to my hospital and I got checked in, and we went to the assessment unit. In the assessment unit, they basically asked me, is this my first time, and had I rang in and told them that I was coming in. And I said no, I wasn't aware that I had to. I was told actually in fact that I didn't have to. So they checked my blood pressure, and my blood pressure was high. I can't remember the exact reading, but it was high. And then they checked my cervix, and I was a 1 to 2, but very flexible. So she told me that she's not going to send me home, but if I go away and come back in 20 minutes, that they'll recheck my blood pressure to see if it's down. So I went back, we went out and came back in 20 minutes, and my blood pressure was back to normal. And they just said, if you walk around for another hour, come back and we'll check your cervix. So we went and we walked up and down the stairs. I don't know how many times, I don't know how many steps we made that day, but we made a lot. We up and down the stairs, stopping every now and again for really strong contractions. So I definitely knew that it was happening today. It wasn't just gonna be contracting and stopping. So we did that. So we went back in an hour, and I was at a 2 to 3, so I had gained a centimeter in an hour. So again, she said come back in another hour and we check you, and we'll see how you're getting on then. So we did that again, walking up and down the stairs. At this stage I decided I was hungry, and we went to the cafe in the hospital, and I couldn't eat anything. I felt extremely sick. So we went back, and I was at a 3 to a 4. So at this stage they said they're going to keep me here and they're going to admit me in, and this is happening now. And actually what happened was, a girl that watches my YouTube videos and also is on Instagram, and we were talking a couple of days before that on Instagram, actually was in labour at the same time as me. I seen her in the assessment unit. So Jessica was there, and she actually had her baby on the same day as me as well. So that was kind of cool that someone recognised me, and it was somebody I had spoken to on Instagram. Just a couple of days before that, we both figured out that we both lived in Ireland and we were going to the same hospital and stuff. So that was interesting. So at that stage, she said to me, "How's your pain?" And I said, "It is getting a little bit worse, where I have to stop talking in between each contraction." She must be having a poop. She's going very red in the face there. So she said to me, "You know, we can give you gas and air." And I said, "That is perfect, because that's my pain relief that of choice that I was going to have, because I didn't want to have an epidural." So she gave me the gas and air, and I loved it. I think I loved it too much. Straight away, I took a little, like only a little sip of it, and then I started laughing, and then I took a huge deep breath, and after that I was hooked on it. I was taking that thing all the time. So they contacted the delivery suite and told them that I was ready to go. So whenever there was a bed ready, someone would come collect me. So our student midwife came and collected us, and I got into the room, I think it was at 12, I think. So when I was in there, the first thing that they did was they checked me, and I was at a 4, 100% effaced at 4, and she said, you know, you keep mobile. They were checking Ava's heartbeat and stuff, and everything was looking good. So she said, if you're happy enough with just the gas and air, just to go ahead, keep doing that. So that's what we did. I got on a ball, and I was just on my gas and air, and 2 hours later they checked me again. So this was at 2:30, and at 2:30 they said, "You're still only at a 4." I hadn't moved from a 4 the 2 hours previous. So at that time, the clinical midwife came in, and she was like, "Look, you haven't moved in 2 hours. We're going to have to break your waters." So being a first time at this, I went, "Okay, you can break my waters," which I shouldn't have done. But anyways, they then prepared to break my waters. So I was like, hold on, how does one break one's waters? So basically it's like a little hook. So they broke my waters, and it all came gushing out. It's like you pee yourself, but pee yourself a whole lot of water at the same time. So after that, I had to be hooked up to the monitors. So I had to get the monitors, the 2 bands on my stomach with the monitors, one for my contractions and one for Ava's heartbeat. So I was still allowed to go on the ball, so we went back on the ball, and they told me that they'll recheck me in another 2 hours. So at that stage, my contractions started to get a little bit closer together and a little bit longer. So I was thinking, perfect, this has worked great. Having my waters broke was a good idea, and I'm glad I did it. So at 3, I think it was only an hour later, they checked me again, and I was still only at a 4. Again, at this stage, it was at 4. The clinical midwife came in, and she said, "Oh, I forgot to say, baby brain, when they broke my waters, there was meconium in it, a lot of meconium in it." So they had said that, you know, baby she will have swallowed that, so just to be prepared for that when she was born. So at 4:30, I was still only at a 4, so the decision was basically made without really not informing me, but getting my permission that I was going to have to get hooked up to Pitocin. So in they went with the Pitocin. They put it in an IV, and I was hooked up to it. I had to stay in the bed then at this stage. I was getting pretty exhausted at this stage, so I didn't mind being in the bed, but I just found that being on my back, the contractions hurt me a lot more. So the Pitocin was put in, and half an hour later they came and they checked the chart, and they decided to up my Pitocin because my contractions still weren't getting any closer together. So they also put me on another thing through an IV drip, and I'm not sure what it was called, but basically 2 things were given to me, and once they gave me the second thing, instantly I felt the difference with my contractions. They were so painful, like they were unbelievably painful. It went from me being able to breathe through them like really good with my gas and air, to me going, no, I can't do this, like I won't be able to do this for long if this is what it's going to be like. So when after I think like a half an hour of that, I said, no, I need to get an epidural. It needs to happen. So the guy came, the anesthesiologist came, and he gave me, he prepped me for an epidural after telling me that it might not work, and you know, the usual precautions that they tell you. So I was hunched over, and you know, he was feeling around putting stuff in, and basically it wouldn't take. I sat in that hunch position for about half an hour when he tried to put that in twice, and put my epidural in twice. It just wasn't going in for him. So he called a head anesthesiologist. So the head guy came in, and again I had back in the hunch position, and contractions were so strong at this stage. Like I kind of blacked out. I wasn't listening to what was really happening unless someone spoke to me, as in, Karen, we need to do this, or Karen, stop doing that, or Karen, breathe more deeply. So that guy got it in. So he said, right, we'll come back and check you in 20 minutes, and we'll see if it has taken. So 20 minutes, I said, I don't notice any difference at all. So they called back the anesthesiologist, and he did an ice block on me. So basically they run like an ice cube up to see where it has numbed. So my stomach was only kind of half numb, so they increased the amount of epidural that they were giving me through the drip. Once they increased it, again I had to wait another while for it to take effect, and again I was just sucking so bad on my gas and air. They, at this stage, I think he was like the on-call surgeon or something, came in with his team. He just said to me that he's coming around to see who's in tonight and how things are going. It was a head doctor, I think it was. So he looked at our charts from our contractions and Ava's heartbeat, and he said that he wanted, first thing he said was, those contractions are way too long and way too close together. She's not getting any break, which I wasn't. I was constantly in a contraction. It felt like if I got 5 seconds of a break, it was a miracle. So he said that when I have my epidural sorted, that he wants them to check my baby's oxygen levels. So I said, okay, I don't really know what that means, but okay. So all this stage, there was the student midwife, the clinical midwife, and the 2 anesthesiologists in the room with me, because they were all trying to get my epidural working. And at this stage, I kind of was getting annoyed, and I said, hold on, what am I supposed to be able to feel with the epidural in? And they're like, all you'll be able to feel is pressure, you know. And I said, well, I can feel extreme pain on my insides, like my internal organs are eating each other. And so again they increased the dosage, and I was like, my belly is numb on the outside, like I couldn't feel a thing on the outside, but on the inside it was like, as I said, my inner organs were eating each other. So at this stage, a surgeon came back in, and he's like, or a lady surgeon came in, and she said, you know, we've been waiting to take the baby's oxygen levels for a long time now, and we're just going to go ahead and do it. Is that okay with you, Karen? And I said, okay. So then as she was preparing, I said, hold on, how do we do this? Like, how do you check your baby's oxygen levels? And basically what they do is they open you up with like, I don't really know, but they put like a tube Robert said it looked like a tube from a drain, and they shoved that up you, sorry to be so blunt, and basically they nick the baby's head with a knife or something, I say, and they take the blood sample, and the blood sample will let them know what the oxygen level is. So that was all happening, which was extremely uncomfortable. So when that happened, she said it will be around 15 minutes when we get the results of this. She walked out of the room. It felt like she walked out of the room and straight away came back in and said, this has to happen now. The baby's oxygen levels are so low. So at 3:30, I was given the drips to bring on my contractions. And when they checked me at 6 o'clock or 10 past 6, I think it was, I was 10 centimeters dilated. So I went from 4 to 10 centimeters dilated in about an hour and a half. And once they knew I was 10 centimeters dilated, everything just started happening where it started to get really traumatic for me. So they told me, Karen, it's time to go. It's time for this to happen. We need to get your baby out now. So I started crying because I didn't, I wasn't expecting it to happen like this. So basically she said she's going to have to use Forceps to help me bring Ava out because she was still quite high. And as I said, her oxygen levels were low. So another couple of people came into the room as far as I remember. And they obviously prepared me for the forceps, and all of a sudden there was just forceps being put in. My legs were being put on stirrups. I remember looking over at Robert too, and he was white as my walls here. He was so white, and I was just bawling and bawling and bawling. I was so upset, and basically my feet were put on the stirrups, and then they said, on your next contraction you have to push. So I started pushing because I was so dazed. I couldn't feel anything that was going on. Even though I was in so much pain internally, I couldn't feel at that moment my contraction. I couldn't feel it at all. So basically the woman had her hand on my stomach and said, you're having a contraction now, push. So I was pushing and pushing, and I was in so much pain. And they tried twice for 2 contractions for me to push, and it wasn't happening. Baby wasn't coming down at all. So all she said was the words were, Karen, we have to bring you for a section. And there was about 20 people in the room. There were so many people, I didn't know what was happening. Again, I started crying harder. Poor Robert was kind of pushed out of the way because they were preparing me and preparing all my stuff. And then they were like, Karen, do you understand what's happening here? And this is a student midwife, and she's like, you're going for an emergency section. It's okay, everything's okay, it's just the baby won't come down, and we don't have time for it. So they started pushing me out of the room. They bashed me into walls because they were in such a hurry. And in the elevator, and I didn't even know this, but actually Robert was in the elevator at the time. He got to come with us, but in the elevator they said to me, Karen, you need to sign this piece of paper. So I took a pen and I was signing it. They told me that I needed to take a tablet and drink a drink, so I did that. This is all in the elevator up to the theatre. And when we got to theatre, the anesthesiologist came over me and said he had given me the highest dosage of epidural that he can give me, that I shouldn't feel a thing, but they were just going to do an ice block. So again, the ice block was up high enough, but I could still feel everything internally. I told them that I'm having a contraction, it's extremely painful. And the surgeon down at the bottom, she said that she's just going to test on my stomach if I can feel stuff, and I started screaming the minute she touched me with the scapula. I'm assuming it was the scapula, because it hurt a lot. So I was like, no, I can feel that, I can feel that, I can feel that. And then all I remember is that the anesthesiologist said, Karen, if you just look back at me. So I tilted my head back, and then he put his hands around my neck. And the next thing I remember is being woken up to the same anesthesiologist saying, congratulations, you had a baby girl. And all I kept saying was, my throat was really sore, I can't breathe. Because I couldn't breathe much, my throat was extremely sore. They never said we had to give you a general anesthetic. They never said that your baby wasn't in the room. They never said anything. I kept asking for Robert, and all he kept repeating was that I have a baby girl, and I never ever asked about her. It was like she wasn't there, you know, because I didn't get to see her. So it was like she wasn't real. Eventually I was took back down to my delivery suite room, and Robert was there, and that's when I got a little bit more information about what had happened previously, like what happened in that couple of hours. He was then brought to go and see Ava. He was only allowed in there for like 2 or 3 minutes, and then he was asked to leave because they had to prep her or whatever they were going to do to her in the NICU. And in that time, it turned out that I had a high temperature, my blood pressure was high, and so they told me I had an infection, so I had to get a whole load of blood draws, and I had IVs hooked up everywhere, and people were taking blood from everywhere, and it was so, like, I was so out of it, I didn't even know. And never once, which is what I think made me have baby blues so bad, is I never asked about her. I never asked what she looked like, what she weighed, how tall she was, you know. So I felt a lot of guilt when I came home of how I initially reacted that night to her. I didn't actually get to see her until like 24 hours later or 20 hours later. And again, my initial reaction to her wasn't good, unfortunately. But now it's good. Now it's good. So that is really my labour and delivery. She's getting awfully fussy, as you can see here. She doesn't want mommy talking. She wants all of the attention. But I just wanted to, because everybody has been asking about my labour and delivery, I just wanted to film it as quickly as I could. So I'm sorry if we look terrible or if I rush through. But if there's any questions, do leave them in the comments. Again, I'm on Instagram if you want to contact me there. So that's it, guys. If you like this video, give it a big old thumbs up. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe, and I will be back with you soon, guys. Bye.